You are listening to Invisible, Not Broken, a podcast where we talk about life with chronic illness and everything that goes with it. For your chronic life enjoyment, we prescribe candid interviews featuring Spoonie community leaders and compassionate medical and wellness practitioners. Warning, side effects may include smiling, crying, laughing, and other intense emotions. I'm Eva Minkoff, your co-host, fibromyalgia warrior, and founder of Wellacopia, the matching site that helps you find your ideal practitioners for your individual needs. Today's episode is about how we use creativity as a practice to become resilient. Meet Jenni Grover, aka the ChronicBabe. Jenni is a celebrated speaker and advocate for the chronic illness community, and particularly known for having created the ChronicBabe community. Since founding ChronicBabe.com in 2005, Jenni has taught countless people how to take charge of their lives post-diagnosis through her hundreds of videos, seriously useful and enjoyable content. You can find them on YouTube, as well as through ChronicBabe membership programs, speeches worldwide, and her book, ChronicBabe 101, How to Craft an Incredible Life Beyond Illness, which is basically the textbook for loving your life no matter how sick you are. Love it. It's now been 14 years since starting the ChronicBabe, and Jenni Grover is ready to take on a new project, a new direction within her life's work to support this community. And today she talks candidly about her fears around starting something new, how to define creativity in daily life, and how to use it as a practice or even form of treatment in order to become resilient in the face of chronic illness. Jenni is sweet, smart, and silly as hell. It's a good one, guys. Now we start the recording jumping in somewhat mid-conversation, so I apologize for that. But get ready, this is an episode that's sure to make you think outside the box.
It's a very, very emotional time for me in my house.
Transition really is. And but it's really brave to know when it is time also.
Thanks. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I've been feeling it for a while, but I didn't know how to talk about it. And I've literally never been in a position where I could rest between gigs. Like, I graduated high school, I went right into college, I had a double major, I started working in college, and then I worked right out of college in my career. And I've gone from each thing like very sequentially. And for many of the years I did ChronicBabe, I was divorced and I didn't have great health care, and it was really expensive, and we were in a recession, and like things were really, really super challenging. And so when I wanted to pivot and try something new, I haven't ever had like a safety net. That was not something I had. I usually was living like client check to client check, and having these, especially that there were a few years in there, like 2007 to 2011, 2012, like those years for healthcare for me were really, really tough because Obamacare didn't exist and I didn't have an employer. So I was buying into a state healthcare plan, and my out of pocket for 1 year was $18,000, which is actually not that much compared to some people, but when you think about being a freelance writer, you're not exactly raking in the big bucks. And then to have that massive expense, it was really challenging. And so this is the first time in my life, literally ever, that I have, I'm married again. I'm knocking wood. We're good. We have what we need. And I can take a few months here and kind of like reconfigure what I'm doing and figure out what's going to work best for my health and for my joy. Yeah. So it's really exciting. It's really super weird because I'm used to working like hustle every minute of the day. And so I'm having a hard time relaxing and not, go like, where's the next deadline? Like, what do I got to get done? What's the thing? So,
and then
interesting transition time.
Yeah. And in that, you are still embodying a leader.
Thanks. I am definitely trying. I mean, I care so much about our chronic illness community. People of, my work has spread to people of all genders and all age groups. I have chronic babes who write to me who are like 80, And I'm just like, yeah, you do it. Um, but yeah, trying to shift my work into this realm that I'm calling creative resilience, which is an idea that I have about how we use creativity as a practice to build our own resilience, our strength in the face of obstacles. So it's actually a supernatural. It's supernatural is what I'm saying. I have powers. No, it's a very natural outgrowth of my work because all the work I've done in Chronic Babe has been about teaching people um, resiliency and self-sufficiency and teaching them how to be strong in the face of these really immense challenges and teaching them how to get creative about building workarounds and resource lists and all those things that we rely on when we have chronic illness, you know? So teaching people like the idea of creative resilience is one about how we look at creativity. So creativity is not necessarily just a thing that we make. Like a lot of people say, I'm not creative because I don't know how to draw. And they're like, and so I'm not creative. That's it. And I believe that's not true at all. Human beings are inherently creative. We're born with the ability to make things and collaborate with people and problem solve. Like we are literally born with those capabilities. Even if those first things we make are just duties in the diaper, still making stuff. But you know, even like itty bitty kids, like they put things together and they, you know, so we have this innate skill. And so teaching people how to tap into that skill is a really big goal of mine. And then teaching people to think about creativity as a practice or as a process, not so much about the finished product. Like the finished product is great, but like this quilt over my shoulder, the finished product is going to be a real stunner. But like, heck, this has been a wild ride for like quilt. It's such a wild ride. I sound like such a weird grandma.
Gorgeous.
Thanks. I'm doing a sew along and I'm learning all these new skills and there's like 600 people participating across like all continents and it's like a whole thing. But the process of that is really challenging and the process is teaching me a lot more lessons than the finished quilt ever will. So trying to instill in people that they can seek out creative processes, they can create their own rituals that really serve them. And then, you know, combining that with resilience, teaching people how to become more pliable, more open-minded, more creative, more flexible and nimble. So it's a really interesting project for me. To me, it feels like a very natural outgrowth of Chronic Babe. Where I feel like I was doing that already, but I would like to expand my audience now to include not just chronic babes, but like all humans who need to learn resilience, because I think that my work can reach a much broader audience and I am excited to kind of see where that can go.
I agree fully that creating, just the natural act of creating something new empowers humans in general, and people really don't get what creative means. It's odd. So I mean, I have some creative bones in my body in the typical way, not nearly as much as my mom and my sister who are like professional writers and artists. But I have a startup. That was something I created.
That is a baby. That is a baby that you have gestated for a long time.
Yes, that is indeed my baby.
Yeah. I mean, I think even basic practices that we do day to day can be creative. Like we were talking before, like you like to wear makeup. That's a creative process. Like the act of sitting down and painting your face. I mean, when I put makeup on, I feel,
I love it.
It's a very creative process for me because I'm like, oh, what color eyeshadow am I going to wear or whatever. And it's fun. And it's, you know, it's just about, I think, you know, like, so friends will tease me because they're like, you have so much nail polish in your bathroom. You have so much makeup on your countertop. And I'm like, I like options. Like I want to have a painter's palette of all the options possible. So I'm very lucky I can do that. And so why not? And I also, you know, creative resilience is like all about bringing other people in too. So like, you bet like everybody comes over and with their kids and they paint their nails in my house.
Nice.
You know? Or like a friend of mine was over the other day, I was teaching them a little bit of quilting and they were like, can I peek in your fabric stash? Like that curtain right there is hiding my fabric stash. It's just a bookshelf of all different colors of fabric.
Your stash, how dangerous.
The stash, I know. It sounds like I'm running some kind of illicit business out of my studio, I promise.
I want to come over and paint my nails and learn how to quilt. That actually sounds really fun. Uh,
That would be amazing. I'd love to have people come over and do that stuff.
I am coming to Chicago actually in a month or so, so
Oh
that's
yeah?
possible.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe
Let me
before the
know.
snow hits, we'll see.
Yeah. No,
You,
not ready.
me,
I'm not
living
ready.
in the tundra. Good times.
I'm not ready.
I really agree. In fact, I'm sticking to this as best as I can, but the first half of my day, like before noon, I mark as time to create. Like I don't
Oh,
have meetings in the mornings as much as possible. I really try to utilize that time as, okay, well, I'm the most awake, I'm the most
mhm,
energized and ready to make things happen. So what can I create today in my business?
mhm.
And what can benefit the people that I'm creating for. Uh,
Uh,
so yeah, sometimes urgency gets the better of me, but
yeah, I mean, like I'm working on a client project today. I've got 4 big magazine profiles to write in the next week, which is a lot. Um, and it's definitely a deadline and I'm hustling on it. But at the same time, like I took breaks in between to go quilt a project that I'm working on in the dining room. Um, because I don't feel good if I'm not making something in the morning. So, but I like what you're saying, like having a ritual of like, I stick to this time. You know, for me, I think prioritizing creativity and nurturing that creative spirit is super important. And, you know, people might want to follow your lead and designate creation time or creative time, but they might decide in the moment that like that time is better spent meditating or that time is better spent taking a walk so they can think about stuff. Like it's, I always try to remind people it's not just about making a thing, it's also about flexing our brain to think strategically about things. Um,
yeah, in a way, expression.
yeah, for sure, for sure. And it's funny, I think it's like funny timing that I dyed my hair pink a couple months ago because I feel like it was like a moment when I thought I really want to change some stuff up, but I don't know what to do. And then we were at the Chicago Alternative Comics Expo, otherwise known as Cake, which is where I find all my weird zines every year, just like weird stuff. And it felt like every person there, I felt, not every person, but I saw so many people with like hot pink hair and a neon mohawk and like crazy face piercings. And, you know, I was like, screw it, I'm dyeing my hair pink. I texted a bunch of my friends. I was like, I'm dyeing my hair pink. And they were like, that's a bad idea. And I was like, yeah, I'm doing it anyway. Um, but I feel like that's that kind of expression. Like this has been kind of a release for me because I don't know. It's like, well, for years in my career, I tried to look like what people expected a professional to look like. And I approached it in a really old school way. And a couple of years ago, I was like, why am I doing that? Like, why am I forcing myself to wear a suit? Like, what's up with that? That's not me at all. Um, a lot of the times the reason people are drawn to my work is because it's different from what has been out there before.
Mhm.
So why hide that? So I'm like, dye my hair pink. So expression, you know, coming back to the idea of expression and how and expression is so much about sharing our voice and also connecting with other people. That's the thing I've always taught in ChronicBabe is how the importance of connection with other people. Um, so feeling like you can get vulnerable or be weird or whatever with other people is like so liberating, and so empowering.
I'm wondering if it's related or a coincidence, maybe given trends right now, but I think I've noticed more people with chronic illnesses have dyed hair than, I mean, like, you know, kind of funky dyed hair
Yeah.
than those who don't have chronic illnesses. Or I'm just going
Huh.
based on all the groups I'm part of and people I talk to. I
Yeah.
feel like I see it all the time. And
Yeah.
my thought is maybe it's not a coincidence. It's another part of extending the identity and expressing themselves in a way
Yeah.
that they might not be able to otherwise because of something to do with their illness. Um,
Hmm.
I've dyed my hair a number of times when I was younger, but it was always natural looking colors. I'm
Yeah.
weird. I'm so weird as a person, and yet nothing about my style is weird in the slightest. Very conservative. It actually bothers me. I had a nose piercing for
Uh-huh.
3 months and, like, you know, a little nub
Yeah.
diamond thing. And everyone said the same thing. It looks good, but it's not you. And
Oh, that's weird. Yeah.
the sad thing was I agreed.
Yeah. Oh, but you know what? I don't think that's sad. It's like you tried something and it didn't fit you exactly. So, like, you could have been stubborn about it and been like, well, no, I'm going to have it forever. And
Yeah.
like quietly resentful of it, you know? But
My
it's kind of weird the idea that people are like, it's not you because like who knows you better than you?
Yeah. So when I
You
tell
know?
people this story, usually they're like, "Screw them, do what you want." And I go,
Yeah.
"Yeah, but I agree. It didn't sit well." And at the same, and I mean, it's so funny. We're talking about like a little hole in my nose, right? But my favorite clothing style, I guess, is
Mhm.
actually grunge or
Oh.
90s heroin chic or whatever you want to call it. I love
Like big
black leather.
baggy jeans and black leather and like a white t-shirt with like a flannel over it. Do you wear flannels a lot? That
No,
was my 90s grunge scene was I wore a lot of flannel.
I do
But
like flannel. It's more so the leather thing and like
oh,
soft sort of outgrown things and leather and studs, not
yeah.
the crazy I'll kill you studs, but like the, metal
Yeah.
thing. I love
Yeah.
black and metal, and it's so doesn't go with my personality. Also, it frankly doesn't go with my shape. And again, this is my decision, right? I'm very
Yeah.
curvy. So these clothes really fit on what's known as a clothes horse, someone who's
Sure.
lanky and long, of which I am.
Yeah.
Um, and again, people will say, well, wear what you want to wear. But it's sad that the style that I like, or even other wackier styles with bright colors that I like, they don't, I don't know, they don't work. You can like something
Yeah.
and I just not want to wear it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you can admire something in other people and not want to adopt it for yourself. I mean, I think it takes a lot of emotional work to do what you're talking about, to actually try to get in touch with, well, what is it that I actually like? Because I have a lot of like, I'm a little bit of a hippie. I have a lot of friends who are, and lots of my girlfriends, they were like flowing tank tops and stuff. And it's like, I have real big bazoombas, and flowy, it's hard to find a good flowy, loose,
Oh yeah.
casual looking tank top for me. It's just like everything looks like work,
Everything
It's
looks
not,
like work.
it just looks like I'm working super hard to wear that tank top. It's a struggle. And so it's like, well, that's not for me. Like, I think it looks great on some of my friends, but it's not for me. And, for a long time, I felt that way about people with like super dyed hair. I really wanted it. So I'm naturally blonde. And my red hair for years was not, I mean, that's not natural. That was also straight out of the bottle. Um, but I used to admire people who had like really out there looks, but I never felt like I could pull it off. And then suddenly I just feel like I can. And I don't, something changed. And I've known other women in their 40s who've told me like in your 40s, like things start to change, you gain more confidence. And, I always was like, whatever, I got plenty of confidence right now. And then I'm like, no, I actually totally get it. Like, you know, I'm, I don't know. I feel like it is hard for us to get in touch with what we actually like. And in some ways, it's like we're bombarded with so many choices and options. Like we look at social media, we see every kind of clothing style, every kind of home decor style. And so it's almost overwhelming, like to pick, well, what is it that I actually like? So I think a lot of us, like, we tend to default to the stuff that we saw our parents liking, or that people that are in our peer groups like. Um, and I definitely did that for a long time. And now I'm like, nope, not doing that anymore. So,
I definitely think I talked about this in another podcast too. The concept of identity in general is uh, quite a concept, quite a rabbit hole. But especially with chronic illness, because it's like, first of all, identifying as someone with a chronic illness or not, and then also shaping your identity around someone who has a chronic illness. Like, even if you
yeah.
don't, I am a sick person, but
Mm,
this is how I identify, and I have to incorporate being sick into that.
yeah. Yeah, that's a challenge. I mean, and me thinking about changing my work, like the ChronicBabe resources I created, I don't have a plan to remove them from the internet. And I certainly am not going to unpublish my book. I have a print book and it's out there and people still buy it. I love that. I'm not going to get rid of any of that stuff, but I am going to stop actively adding new work to Chronic Babe. And that feels really weird. And I definitely had a few crying sessions with my business coach because I was like, who am I if I'm not Chronic Babe? And she's like, well, you're Jenni. And one of the things Jenni is a Chronic Babe, but Jenni is also a teacher and a leader and a volunteer and a wife and a sister and like all these other things. So it's like, and I think with chronic illness, where I see a lot of people trip up and really fall down that rabbit hole, but in a bad way, is when they identify so closely with their diagnosis that they can't see outside of it. And so what happens is you get isolated, you're only hanging out with people that have your same illness or diagnosis. And so all you see is disease, and you don't get opportunities for like cross-pollination. So I've been really lucky in my work because I never specified. Chronic Babe wasn't about fibromyalgia or asthma or anxiety or depression or whatever. It was about chronic health issues. And so I've made friends across all these different disease states, and it's been amazing because I learned so much from them, and that cross-pollination is really important. But I think sometimes people self-identify so much. One, they're just constantly thinking about it, which is a huge bummer.
Yeah.
And two, they're not getting a lot of outside influence, you know. And then like other parts of their community start to fade away, like maybe church becomes less important, or they're spending less time with their family, or you know, it can become a really big I've seen a lot of people do it, and their life becomes 100% about suffering. And you know, I'm a Buddhist. I mean, I'm actually wearing a t-shirt today that has the word Buddha on it, so if it's
I
not
know. I love it.
I am such a Buddhist today. But you know, I one of the things that we know from Buddhism, and every human being knows this, is that like life includes suffering, and everyone experiences suffering of some kind or many kinds or whatever. But we can choose not to like steep ourselves in it. Like, I don't want to be the cold tea bag in the lukewarm water that's been steeping in misery like all friggin' day. Do you know what I mean? Like, I would like to take that tea bag. I wish I had a cup of tea here, and like dip it for a couple of minutes and then be like, okay, now I'm going to drink my tea and do something else. Like, I get, you know, I definitely don't want people to deny the reality of their health stuff, but I think that we can accept and acknowledge our reality of having health issues, and then we can um, also live a much broader life, a life of the mind, a life physically outdoors, whatever we can do. We can live a lot beyond our illness, and I think that I've always tried to teach that with Chronic Babe. Um, and I've always tried to live that in my own life, because you know, when I first got sick, I was 20, well, I was 25. Like, you don't really know that much when you're 25. I mean, I was a pretty smart 25-year-old, but there was a lot of shit I did not know. And I made a lot of mistakes, and you know, and you just don't, but I mean, I felt like my life was literally over. And I actually thought I was dying because I was losing all this weight, and the doctors couldn't find any reason why. I was way underweight. I was really unhealthy. And you know, people were saying, you look great. And I'd be like, thanks. But in my head, I was like, I am definitely dying. And we don't know why. And that was really, really scary. And so that saps you of your identity. Then your identity becomes all about taking care of yourself and fighting this big battle. And I'm so thankful that I was able to move through that and recognize that that's not a headspace where I want to live. Well, I definitely have learned that in very low lows, if you have hot pink hair, you still feel like you look cute. So that's a real bonus.
See, this is why I think I see it so often.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, I mean, you know, I grew up in a household. I grew up in a family filled with abuse and addiction and a lot of challenges. I sued my mom for emancipation when I was 11, and won the case when I was 13. I have experienced a lot of hardship growing up. I had viral meningitis. So I was unconscious for many days in the hospital with that, almost died. You know, I've had health issues, and I've lived in a very destructive, you know, family situation for my whole childhood. And so when I was looking at like going away to college and creating my own life, I was basically like, let me get the farthest away I can from anyone. And, let me create a career for myself that I know that I can do with love for the rest of my life, which was becoming a professional writer. Um, and I honestly think that there's some weirdness in my brain because I'm very different. And so it's really interesting we're talking about this because I've been thinking a lot about identity and like, well, how that, how we come to be who we are. And, I always felt really awkward and kind of like a black sheep. And I think partly in my family, I felt it because I was so different from my family, but also like in school, I always felt like I didn't quite fit in. Like I was punk rock, but not quite punk rock enough. Like I didn't have a safety pin through my ear, but I definitely had a leather mini skirt. There was like I was close, but no, and then I was like a nerd. I was on the honor society, but I wasn't a perfect straight A student, or you know what I mean. I always felt self-conscious about it. Like, what group do I belong to? Like, and when we're that age, we want to group ourselves for like a sense of security. And I never really felt like I found my group. And I only understand now as I'm older that like the ability to move between a lot of those groups and develop real relationships within them is like a real blessing. Like I got that by accident, and that's a magical thing because I can show up in almost any group of people and make a friend, which I know a lot of people can't do. So I will also overshare and tell them way too much about myself, which is the thing I've been working on. So, I'm like, they're my friend, and they're like, she's psychotic. She can't stop talking about her, but, so I've been thinking a lot about that because I feel like the early days of our childhood are so formative. Um, they have such an impact on who we are later, but also we have choice. So, as I got older, it's like I had choices about who I was going to associate with and who I was going to be friends with. And I had choices when confronted with this chronic illness crap. A few years into it, I was a writer. I am a writer. And I was like, I can make this resource that isn't out there because I really wish for it. And I know other people are wishing for it. So like we can make those choices. But I do think that growing up in a very kind of fractured, crazy family with all kinds of stuff helped shape me into a very resilient person, into a person who could pretty much face just about anything and bounce back. And that's been a skill. I don't know if we call it a skill or a trait, but I've been nurturing it ever since because I just know that like, and I think because I bounced back from some like literally like facing death multiple times as a teenager, bouncing back from that, being able to do that has, whenever I start to doubt myself, I just think back on like, hey, wait a second, like you did all that stuff, you know? But I think those things really shape us into the kind of person. So just like you, who creates something that you see a need and you're like, I see this unmet need. I'm going to step in and create it. And I think that not everyone does that. Not everyone has to do it. But, when I look back on the history of my life so far, there've been lots of moments where I had to create the thing that I needed for myself. Like the thing wasn't there for me. One thing my coach said, she said, you really help. The tagline on my book is like, how to craft an incredible life beyond illness.
Yeah.
And I was talking with my coach about it the other day, and she said, you've helped a lot of people craft incredible lives, and your life was the first one. And I was like, oh, you're so good. We can cultivate our identity, and when we surround ourselves by other people too, who kind of, it's almost like I want to be around people who reflect back the best parts of me, like it's almost like I want them to hold up a mirror and I want to see the best part, like, because those are the parts I want to be the most of, so I think surrounding ourselves with people that are like that is really important too, which for some people with chronic illness is people in their specific community. Like I know a lot of people in the chronic pain community, and they are amazing people, and they inspire me to just be probably a really different person than I would have been had I not gotten sick. But I also like to hang out with people who don't. First of all, if I hang out with people who don't have illness, they're much more reliable. And so
It's sad but true. Yeah,
You know?
it's a different mindset, right? It's okay, and with these people I have to acknowledge the fact that they're not, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And then other people, everyone has their own excuses, but you have different expectations.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And even just, I think that part of community is super important for resilience. Just having that cross pollination, having different kinds of people in your life that believe in you or support you, or even just that influence you. So even if it's not even people that you know in person, but maybe you follow, like, a couple of years ago, I made a real intentional move to follow a lot of body positive people on Instagram, because that was really important for me to see myself represented in that medium that I love so much. And their words and their actions and their videos and photos have helped me love myself so much more. Like, I am working on weight loss for health reasons, but seeing those people in my feed every single day has helped me love myself a lot more, and also teach other people how to love themselves, even if their body isn't what, our culture deems as like healthy or whatever. I mean, I'm a very healthy person, even though I'm plus size. I just got my labs back. Um, and
Yay.
I'm good. Like, so but I think that we have to make an intentional effort to surround ourselves with all different kinds of people. And that just teaches us how to be stronger people.
Our environment has so much more impact on our well-being, well, our physical and emotional health,
Yeah.
and future health than a lot of people give credit to.
Mhm.
And I agree definitely with surrounding yourself with people that reflect what you want to embody, maybe what you want to even strive for. Uh,
Mhm.
so this is obviously a touchy subject for others and possibly for you. I mean, even for myself, but I know definitely listeners are not all in the best relationships, whether that be
Oh
friends
yeah.
or definitely spouses, boyfriends, girlfriends. Um, Unfortunately, a lot of us, maybe it's because we haven't found real self-love yet. And I know self-love is a hard thing to define, but
Yeah, sure.
we we might be resilient through those relationships, but a part of resilience, in my opinion, is recognizing what you need and what you don't need and
Mhm.
moving past that. So it's easier said than done, of course. And I respect everyone who is in a situation that they feel uncomfortable with or worse. But know that there is a way out, and that
Yeah.
you have to find what that is, but that there is a way. And I know I read a story today I won't go into, and I want to get her on the podcast, but there is a girl with it's going to bother me now, it's like CRPS.
Oh, CRPS,
Yes,
complex regional pain syndrome. Hmm.
exactly. I hope I can have her on the podcast. She has a story on her page. um, I'm still processing it. Like,
Mm.
really, I'm still processing it. And I was, I'm proud of her, not even knowing her, because she got out of something that was, I mean, multiple things, but especially a marriage situation where she was destroyed and she thought that was the norm. And it really got to me, because if that's your context, right? We're talking about the people around us, our environment, that's your context
Yeah.
of living. And she had no idea that that was wrong.
Yeah.
She started to have it confirm that, oh, I'm not crazy. This is what's going on. And it's not good. It's not
Yeah.
good. But that just is reality. So if you have
Yeah.
an inkling of that being the case, chronic illness related or not,
Yeah.
there is possibility out there. I really try and be optimistic without being, well, unrealistic.
Yeah.
But it's hard.
Right.
It's hard for people to see sometimes.
Yeah.
I don't know if that personally resonates with you. I know that you're divorced. That's
Oh
all.
yeah. Yeah. No, I definitely, I mean, so I want to respect my ex-husband. And so I won't name him. I mean, it's easy to find him, but whatever, it doesn't matter. He's a really decent human being. He's very kind, and very creative. And he was very loving in a lot of ways. And so it wasn't like I had this miserable marriage and he was, there wasn't abuse, there wasn't like big drama or anything. But I was so unhappy. I was so unfulfilled in that relationship. And it was really hard to say, I'm going to get divorced, especially during a recession. Like I mean, I didn't have extra money to be thrown around, you know. I negotiated for a cheaper rent on an apartment I wanted, and I was lucky because there weren't that many new renters out because we were in a recession. Um, but leaving him and starting my life in a different way was super hard and very scary. Very scary. I was just like 2 weeks away from getting evicted from my apartment at one point because I didn't have money to pay rent or bills. I was selling all my belongings to pay for stuff. I mean, you do everything you can to survive. But when people ask me, well, like, well, how bad was your first marriage? I'm like, well, I mean, I did that. Like, I left at a moment that was really impossible. So it's not, you know, I, I definitely am not saying this to bash him. And I think that ultimately it was good for both of us that we split up. But it was a really hard decision. And you know, I'm very lucky that I had state provided high risk pool insurance, even though it was extremely expensive. I was able to maintain my health care for most of the time. Um, but it's hard. And I think that when I talk to people about it, they'll say, well, chronic pain broke up your marriage. And it's like, well, no, that's not actually right. There were lots of different reasons that my marriage ended. Me having a bunch of chronic stuff is definitely a part of the puzzle. Um, you know, it was really tough on him, and yeah, but I just knew I wanted more. I knew I didn't want to feel alone inside of a relationship.
Mm.
And I knew that was really essential for me. And so I made that move. So, I mean, yeah, and I know a lot of people, you know, divorce rates are really high in our country, and in North America, and divorce rates among people with chronic pain and chronic illness are even higher, because it really is hard on a relationship. But then I look at my marriage today to Joe, and it's like, you know, he is also divorced the first time. So like when we met and we started hanging out and talking about our relationship, we were so intentional about what we wanted and what we weren't able to, you know, tolerate and what we could give. And so we were both like, we had a lot of we had a lot of very like mature conversations, which I had not had before with a romantic partner, where we talked about what we wanted and what our goals were going to be and how we were going to respect each other and all these other things. And you know, it's just a totally different thing. So you can create that for yourself. It is very possible, but it's not going to, you know, it's not necessarily going to be easy, and it's not going to be without pain, but it is possible to make that kind of change.
And worth it, more than worth it.
Mhm.
Talk about an
Oh my God.
environmental, like,
Yeah.
is the person that you live with and spend your life with. It's really
Yeah.
pretty important. So yeah, and it doesn't have to be that you were abused, just that you, in order to leave. If you said you felt
Yeah.
alone in your struggle, or
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I felt very, I mean, you know, he had a career and hobbies that he had a hobby that turned into a career. And um, he wasn't able to budge an inch. And so it was like every minute of time we were together, he was pursuing this hobby slash career. And so I spent a lot of time, you know, and I would be at home all day working by myself in my home office. And then he would come home and go right into working on his hobby. And I'd be like, hi, I'm here. Like, I want to hang out with you. And that was tough. And I also, you know, in that time, I think because you know, when you surround yourself with people, like you're going to meet more of the same kinds of people a lot of the time, right? Like people who have the same values or the same social structure. And um, I wound up in a circle of friends who were really self-critical and really judgmental about other people. And it was also really, it was always like really uncomfortable for me, but I also just thought that was normal. Like that's what I'd grown up with. That seemed normal to me. I didn't realize that there were different ways of being. And honestly, like, I think that my path to studying Buddhism more intently, like, really opened my eyes about a lot of things that I was doing, like behavior that I was tolerating in other people. And I was being a judgmental catty biatch too sometimes, you know? And like, that was not a good look on me. Like, that's not what I want my life to be. So, um, you know, before I got divorced, I got this tattoo. It says, peace is every step.
Peace in every step.
Yeah,
That's
peace is every step. Yeah. And it's the name of a book by Thich Nhat Hanh, who is one of my favorite Buddhist teachers. And I feel like I tattooed the peace is every step on my arm because I needed this reminder that like I get a choice every single step I'm taking every day. Like I can actually choose peace. I don't actually have to choose drama or stress. I don't have to choose to be disrespected. Like I get to choose every single, and I literally was like, I need to see that on my arm every morning when I roll over and wake up. Like that's the first thing I need to see, because we get choices. And a lot of times when we're in a shitty relationship or we're in a really hard spiral, downward spiral with our chronic illness stuff, or we're undiagnosed, or you name it, it can feel like we don't have resources, and it can feel like we don't have the ability to choose. It can feel like what's that word when people feel empowered, like they have agency. We don't feel like we have agency over our situation, and that can be really challenging. And so for me, I needed to tattoo it on my arm so that it would sink in day after day after day. Like I get to choose to not be in this angry, sad, depressed situation. Like I get to actually choose to cultivate some peace in my heart. So I got this tattoo, and like 6 months to a year later, I separated from my first husband. But I needed that time to really let that idea sink in, because I don't know, felt like I just I felt like I couldn't get out, felt like I wasn't able or worthy of making a choice like that. I think when we grow up in really abusive, yucky situations, we tend to, one defense mechanism is to like take care of everyone else, like make sure that everyone's okay. I'm the oldest of 3 girls. Like my job was a peacemaker, just like a lot of firstborn kids, their job is the peacemaker in the family. Like, yeah. So like you wind up kind of being like a people pleasing, um, codependent kind of person. I'm saying that about myself and not about you.
all good.
So I've been working for years and years to get over the codependency, because that is a drag. And I'm also trying to get over the people pleasing, because that is a drag. And I think that a lot of us, when we're stuck in really hard situations, it's hard to see past that. So we have to keep people around us who lift us up, who show us that there's a different way of being. Like I'm very proud that I've been able to be that person for a lot of other people. And you're that person for a lot of people. And there's so many great activists out there that are like modeling that your life can be different, it's hard. Over the years, I've encountered so many people in the ChronicBabe audience who are just like miserable and stuck. And I completely understand why. Like I was that way for many years. Like after I got diagnosed, I was that way for a few years, like miserable, resentful, hopeless, just completely stuck. But you can get out of it. And I think that's the thing that I'm always trying to teach people, is that you can get out of it, and like it'll feel, I was talking with another quilter the other day, and she was talking about grief and sewing, and she was saying that like, when she's not sewing and she's in her grief, she's like falling backwards. But then when she's hand sewing, every stitch, she said, it feels like I'm moving forward. And so when I think about that, like we might have to take these tiny, tiny baby steps to move ourselves forward. If we feel like we're stuck in crummy chronic illness space or relationship space or work or whatever it is, but every stitch, like every tiny, tiny incremental change brings us closer to the life that we want to lead. So I always try to communicate that to people. It's hard though, when someone's been stuck in a place, like if they have chronic pain or other stuff, and or depression, and they've been stuck there for years and years and years, it can feel just impossible to see your way out of that. I'm sure you encounter people with that same
Oh yeah,
mindset too. Yeah.
possibly every day. I also recognize that while I can try to inspire or show them that there is that, we're basically saying the words possible and choice are synonymous, which I love.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you're not going to get through that wall. Like they need to have that wall. They need to be behind it a little longer.
Mm-hmm.
But that is a step, actually, is listening to it, even if it's not acting on it yet. I know that, and this even went for friends with breakups. So actually me with a breakup when I was young. Yeah. I knew that friends said it enough that eventually it got to me, and I realized they were right, and I needed to do it on my own time. And I think it goes with maybe a certain health regimen. I mean, it goes with so many things.
you move when you're ready to hear it, but you should hear it. Right?
Yeah.
You should
Yeah.
hear it, and then you decide what you want to do with it. Yeah,
Yeah.
actually, having all these sort of flashes back to times where I didn't listen to things for a long time and they made such an impact. I actually think integrative medicine or holistic medicine is a big thing for a lot of people with chronic illnesses. First of all, because if you're not in an environment where that's encouraged, and you're seeing all these doctors who give you maybe it's the 7-minute visit, very cold, very factual,
Right.
saying it's all in your head, that kind of stuff. It's probably really hard to see that there are other choices, other possibilities. But and a lot of people wait until they don't have any other choice, which is
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
yeah. And as I always say, I'm a proponent of both. I love standard care, Western medicine, and then I also believe in the integration of wellness care.
Yeah.
I don't like to say believe. It's a weird word, but
I think I know what you mean though. It's like well, I think you do have to believe in it actually. I mean, I almost really think you do because Western medicine doctors, they'll prescribe things or describe actions they want you to take partly or in whole because they want the placebo effect or the nocebo effect, Like I think that our belief about if something is going to work for us actually plays a big role in whether or not it does work for us.
oh, it's
It's
huge.
huge.
I have this conversation all the time. I think I have on the podcast too. Like, what is the placebo effect? And even my husband said this, the placebo effect is incredibly effective. It's often more effective than the meds themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a reason for that. And it's not a fake out. People see the placebo effect in a negative light, which really is your perception change, which is what therapy is. And nobody's bashing, actually some people bash therapy, but
Some people bash it.
I don't understand that. But anyway, right. Perception change can change how you feel physically as well. I mean, obviously based on all of these, all this comes out on placebo. And I don't know, it just bothers me because placebo is seen as fake when it's just as real. It's just not through medication.
Well, yeah. So like I did an intensive pain management, pain camp basically for 6 weeks at the beginning of the year. Pain camp. So I wasn't inpatient, but I mean, they consider it inpatient because I would go for all day. And so, during each day I would see a clinical psychologist, a relaxation specialist, an occupational therapist, a physical therapist, a creativity expert, some, folks that work with me on nutrition, like they brought in all these different, and I would see my pain doctor and we would talk about how my meds were working. Like it was everything worked together.
I love that.
And it's very holistic. Yeah, I love it too. I feel like there were days where I would come home and I would cry because I was exhausted, but also because I was so grateful because it's such a gift to be able to go through that kind of program. But I think that being part of that program and being surrounded by it and having people telling you all day how much different things interact with each other, how your sleep affects your pain level or how your nutrition affects your mental wellness, like all these other everything is woven together is super important. And that believing in ourselves is super duper important. So there was one day where I had been having pain. Part of why I went was I was having so much pain in my arm and my elbow. Like I couldn't lift up a dinner plate. I couldn't do a lot of basic healthcare things for myself. Just couldn't use this right arm a lot. And I'm right-handed and it was a big struggle. So that's part of why I went through pain camp. And one of the things that, there was one day where I was in and it wasn't hurting that much. And one of the PTs asked me like, so what's your pain at? And I'm like, well, I think it's at like a 2, but honestly, like, I feel like it's probably a 6. Like it's probably in there and I'm just not recognizing it. And she was like, ho. If you're hurting and you're not recognizing it, that means you're not feeling the pain. That means you're not having the pain. Like it doesn't matter if it came from exercise or from, a pill or a cream or whatever. If you are not feeling it, like your brain is what creates the pain. Like it's the way your signals, firing or misfiring in your brain that create chronic pain. And she's like, your brain is a very powerful tool in fighting this. And if you don't feel it, if you don't recognize it in your brain, then you're not going to feel the pain. And that's our goal. It doesn't matter how we get there.
Agreed. I mean, yeah, that's true. I do think, and I might have to check this later, that most of it's in our brain. Some of it's actually in our spinal cord and doesn't register in our brain at all, which is weird.
Yeah, no,
I'm
that's
just
actually
gonna say that I need to look that up again.
yeah, no, that's actually true. I mean, she was like oversimplifying, but
Yeah, no, but generally speaking, that is absolutely true. Absolutely.
Yeah, you're right though. There is a lot that happens in our spinal cord that influences how we feel pain.
So I don't want to do this because I could talk to you forever. But
Same.
But I was going to say, I like to end on sort of your own quote about what is the main message you want to give people, which I think has happened throughout this wonderful episode. But if there is one last thing, one like nugget of knowledge for people to walk away with, like a mantra sort of thing. Well, actually,
sure. Well, they can take pieces every step with them and go read that book. You don't have to be a Buddhist to get a lot out of that book. Wow. I think the thing that I would want to remind people of is that, well, I don't have a good pithy, mantra for it, but like, one, you're not alone. There's people like you and me and other people out there who really care. Two, you have options. Three, you are an inherently creative person, which means there are workarounds. And I think that focus on identity is so key. Like, if you can do nothing else after listening to this interview, if you hang out with yourself and think about, who am I? Like, what do I love? What do I want? What do I want to create? It's not impossible to pursue those things if you have chronic illness. It's actually very, very possible. And you don't have to do it alone. So
thank you. You are very quotable.
Thank you. I wish I had a good pithy, like short. I'm still creating this creative resilience business, so I don't quite have my elevator speech ready yet.
That's all good. Believe me, we'll send people to your website and keep them updated on what you are doing. But thank you for creating a space of expression, expressing yourself, whether it be with a chronic illness or not, through creativity, and making it clear that everyone is creative, inherently creative, as you said, and can use that as a tool, almost, could I say, almost as if it's a form of treatment. It should be your treatment regimen is creating on.
Yes. I want everybody to put creativity into their daily regimen, because even if you're just thinking about like how you're cooking your eggs today, like, can you mix it up? Can you throw a different herb in there that you haven't tried before? Like, you can get creative in every way. You don't have to paint a picture or do calligraphy. You can weave it in throughout all these different places in your day-to-day life, and feel that sense of excitement again, and pleasure and joy and possibility.
And that's true even if you are not walking around.
That's true.
You have a brain.
That's true.
Creativity is possible. And I will think about this as much as I can think about this next time, but I'm imagining when I'm in a fog, like a really bad fibro fog, and it's kind of like being drunk without the happiness. That's how I explain it. And how I could even be creative in that moment. And it might just be a new way of soothing myself. It's like, okay, I'm really I have to deal with this situation. I don't get to do maybe what I wanted to do, but I can still create a new environment for me to feel comfortable, or whatever else I want to feel.
Yeah. Or like safe or secure or satisfied. Like, I think making those choices, being really intentional, and being really intentional about setting yourself up on the days that you're feeling well. It's like, on the day that you're feeling well might be the day you go around the house with a basket and grab like a bottle of cuticle oil and your knitting and a chapstick and, you know, and a blankie and like all those things that are comforting and lovely. And then like you put that basket by your couch, and then days later when you're in a fog and you can't get anything done, the basket's right there by your couch. Like your little self-care basket is waiting for you. So like when you're feeling well, when you're feeling as well as possible, when you're feeling better, those are the days to like set yourself up for success. Like those are the days I build up Spotify playlists. You know, those are the days that I'm saving, clipping recipes that are super duper simple. Those are the days I'm researching grocery delivery services so I can try to get the best deal. Like that, you know, so then on those days when you feel really, really bad, you've done that creative work on another day when you had the creative headspace for it. And so then on a day you're feeling crap and you can't get off the couch, like it's not a total shock to the system. You're not without resources.
That's really great advice. I'm pretty sure you have a video tour on that too.
Yeah, I do. I can't remember what the name of the video is. I have talked about it before. I have little baskets like that, or like in some cases a drawer in every room of my house.
Oh, that's awesome.
Like yeah.
I have one in my backpack. I have a little
Yeah.
that I bring around with me with some just some little bits. Oh, that's so cute.
Yeah.
What is that?
My little jug. It's got a lip balm and it's got an essential oil roller. I can clean my glasses because they get dirty all the time. I have earplugs if people are noisy outside. Just keep this on my desk.
Mine has some CBD oil, painkillers if I really need them, and I try not to use them unless I really need them. What else? Yeah, I always have lip balm and some sort of moisturizer for when my skin, you know, with fibro, we have that burning feeling, even if it does nothing, and that's a placebo effect. I don't care.
Just touching yourself in a loving way that isn't about like, oh, it's more like, oh, like that in itself is a loving act that we can, you know, do for ourselves. It's like such a revelation in the face of pain and exhaustion and, you know, irritated skin. The fact that you can take a moment and go, no, I love you, skin. Like that's amazing. Try saying it next time. You'll start laughing, and that's also good for your body.
Laughing, last piece of advice. Laugh as much as humanly possible.
Always.
All right, well, that's also a good thing to leave everyone with. But thanks again, Jenni. I love you. I love your pink hair. I love your spirit.
Yeah, I love you too. I'm so happy to be here with you today.
Thank you.
All right. Take it easy. I'll talk to you soon.
Mwah.
Mwah.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Invisible Not Broken, where I interview leaders in the chronic illness community. I am Eva, your co-host and the founder of Wellacopia, which if you haven't heard me talk about it before, it's the site to find your ideal medical and wellness practitioners, ones that fit you, ones that are right for your illness, for your personality, for your preferences and approach to care, everything that you need to have that experience that you've been looking for so long. So visit wellacopia.com if you're looking for a new practitioner, and I'm happy to help you out myself if you can't find one on Wellacopia just yet. Everyone have a fabulous rest of the day, and as always, be kind, be gentle, be badass.